Christian to Jimenez. Good ball. Pass back to Christian. It's funny how things work out. In the preview of this match, I specifically talked about Rafael Leao and Christian Pulisic playing up top as strikers. Who scored in this match? Rafael Leao and Christian Pulisic. I also gave my prediction for this match. The scoreline that I'm going to go with, I think, is going to be a 2-0 for Milan. So we're off to a great start. I'm going to get my 4 takeaways from today's match. You guys know how this works. Green boxes for good performances, red boxes for bad ones. And before I get things started, I do want to give a shout out to Rip. Now, I'm not sure if he wants me to use his full name, so I'm not going to. I went to a wedding yesterday and Rip came up to me. He shared how he was a fan of the channel. He watches all the videos. So I just want to say thank you for coming up and saying hi. And thank you for supporting the channel. And now let's kick things off with the 4 takeaways. Now, the first takeaway from today's match, this one's going to be a green box, and this one goes out to Rafael Leao. Ficayo. Rafa! There it is. Now, this is a player that a lot of fans at the conclusion of last season, some of you guys even in the comment section were talking about how, next season, there's not going to be a Rafael Leao at Milan. The player's going to leave. He's going to leave alongside Theo Hernandez. And he's still here. The coach came in very early on, set the tone, said that this is the player that they want to build the team around. This is the player that Allegri wants to build the team around. And he did turn him into a bit of a focal point. Playing on the wings is very different from playing up top as a striker. And today, that's the sense that you got from Milan's lineup. There's one thing that is putting the player on a team sheet, the way we sort of discussed it in the previous video, up top as one of the 2 strikers. And there's a whole other thing to actually watching them play and how they actually play. And with Leao, Pulisic played a little bit more of the conventional role that he usually does, more so a little bit on the wings. He did hug himself a lot more towards the left wing, especially after Leao's injury. But Leao played much more centrally. It was Leao playing in the middle like a number 9. On his left would be Christian Pulisic, and beyond that would be Estupinan, and on his right would be, either Ruben Loftus-Cheek and then Alexis Saelemaekers, especially when Milan was attacking. So when Allegri said that he's going to try and build this team around him, he literally physically built the team around him, where Leao's taking that more central role of actually being the finisher. And I did make a note of this around 12 minutes and 30 seconds. Pretty much while I was writing this note down is when he ended up scoring the eventual goal, but around 12 and a half minutes, there was a moment where Leao got control of possession right on the edge of the box, and he, turned around, faced the goal, and took a shot right away. And you could almost sense that he was given the license to finish. He was given the license to take his chances in trying to get the ball in the back of the net, more so than getting the ball into the path of one of his teammates so that they can score. At that 12 and a half minute point, if you look at his position, you would always assume that the Rafael Leao of last season, the season before that, and his time at Milan essentially would have tried to pass that ball to a teammate making an overlap or an underlap run. But instead, he just turned around and ripped a shot. The goalkeeper was forced into a save, and then, as I said, while I was making a note about that, Leao was offered a clutch ball, a perfect cross from Ficayo Tomori that he comfortably headed into goal. And that was, quite honestly, a very old school number 9 sort of goal, where that, looping cross comes in and the number 9 essentially heads it in. Most of the times we see a lot of number 9s doing is now, dropping down and playing deeper and, using their feet a lot more. But this was like an old school headed goal from across from the wings. And as I sort of talked about it in the preview as well, that, in my understanding, how I truly see this is that Allegri very likely sees goals as something that unlock Leao's confidence even more and make him an even better player when he's playing on the wings. At some point in time, you're probably going to see him play the more traditional role that he usually does. But goals will unlock that confidence. And I think he even came out before this match and said that he wants to hit 100 goals with Milan. And that tells me that somehow this season, the conventional number 10 role is to be the facilitator, the creator for the teammates. But I think this season, with so much talk about him scoring goals, him coming out and saying he wants to score 100 goals, playing that number 9 role in the preseason in the first match of the season, I think the focus is now shifted from him, from not just being a facilitator, but also evolving himself into a good finisher. And what better way to get that started than to score the opening goal of the season for Milan? Now, the sad part is that soon after, scoring that goal, he did go down, seems like with an injury, a calf strain. It is being reported. Antonio Vitiello came out and said that, Milan's going to make assessments over the coming days. You really hope he's going to be available for the match against Cremonese. Leao is that spark that you want to have from the first game of the season, so hopefully he's going to be fit in time. And the first shout out from today's match, this one's going to be a shout out that goes out to Fikayo Tomori. This is a player that has been under heavy scrutiny. A lot of, fans of the club believe that his stock has just been falling down and down. But with Max Allegri coming in, he's made some adjustments to Milan's backline. Now it's a 3-man backline with Pavlovic, Gabbia, and Tomori. It offers a little bit more security to the center backs themselves. And you could say that today Tomori did a pretty good job in that role. Now, I don't really care if Milan's playing against Bari. I don't think that's relevant. I mean, it is relevant to a degree, but we're just assessing a player's individual performance. We're not necessarily talking about how much of a world beater they were today. I'm just talking about how they actually fit into the system, and I think Tomori fit in pretty well. Now, obviously, he picked up that assist for Leao's goal. I mean, it was a inch-perfect, lovely cross that was put in by Fikayo, but I think it was a moment around 18 minutes and 58 seconds, basically around the 19-minute mark. There was a pass that was made from Gabbia, and I think he was passing the ball on the right wing towards Tomori or towards Saelemaekers. He actually meant to pass the ball to Tomori, but he kind of mispassed it and went a little bit further up ahead from where Tomori was standing. And in that moment, that little moment of hesitation that I saw from Tomori, a moment of hesitation of, should I go for it or should I just stay back and defend? I feel like in the past, sometimes he would sort of give up his position, sacrifice that, and just chase the ball instead, and just start running. And, maybe a Bari attacker or, another team's attacker would get in the way, pick up the ball, and start running because they would have momentum. Now Tomori has to turn around and start running back towards his goal, and he'd find himself in this awkward position. But in today's game, it happened twice, and 19 minutes is when I actually noticed it. The moment that missed pass was made by Gabbia, Tomori sort of jerked to go up, and then he's like, no, I'm going to prioritize defense. I'm going to prioritize holding on to my position. If they get the ball, I'm going to be in the right position to defend, or Alexis could pick up the ball. But that moment of prioritizing the right position and defense rather than, chasing the ball, that I think has that bit of Max Allegri impact. And as I said, I'm not bothered if it's Bari or another team. It's the way that I'm seeing this particular player work. Now, against an easier opponent, things are going to come a lot easier. We'll have to see how he plays against the tougher teams, but what I saw from him today, I was fairly okay with it. And the second takeaway from today's match, this one's also going to be a green box. This one goes out to Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I think, arguably, if you want to talk about work rate, intensity, and just sacrificing yourself for the team's cause, I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek was the man of the match today. The kind of effort he put in today really impressed me. And again, as I said, at the conclusion of the last season, a lot of fans talking about even him. Loftus-Cheek gone, sell him, move on from him. Allegri comes in and says, you know what, this is going to be one of the key pieces for me. Even after the match is done, Allegri's assistant, who was on the sidelines today, said, talked about how important a piece Loftus-Cheek is to Milan and to the coaching staff, how much they value him because of his strength. Just from his strength alone, he can win the ball. He can hold on to the ball. He can create things for you. Around 5 minutes, there was a moment when he won the ball, when Bari were starting to get away and start an attack. Around 23 minutes. And at that zone, there were two different moments where his intense pressing just did not allow Bari to breathe on the ball. The second time when he did that, he actually won the ball, turned it into a counter-attack from Milan, and the Rossoneri almost scored. And again, in the second half, 52 minutes, excellent defensive run on Bari's counter. So anytime that they were trying to cut loose, Loftus-Cheek was always there to just pull him back in. And to me, that is the key piece. I think there were two things that Milan was missing last season. One was good leadership, and one was work rate. And I think both of those things today, Loftus-Cheek showed really well. He was in control of the game. He was using his strengths to his benefit, and he was all over the other side. His work rate, he did not stop running. Say what you want about him. You can talk about his injury issues, whatever it might be, but the guy actually gives it his all when he's on the field. And for that specific reason, I think he's worthy of a green box today. Now, the next one's going to be a call out, and I think some people might find this a bit harsh, but I'm still going to stick with it. It's going to go out to Pervis Estupinan. It's not a red box. It's not a disaster. I just felt like The one thing that he did do, just like I'm talking about Loftus-Cheek with work rate, he was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth consistently throughout the entire game. You got to give him credit for that. But sometimes I felt like he wasn't very good when he had the ball. Some moments he actually also got caught out of position, even while defending. One of their best chances that they created in the first half, well, one of the better chances that they created in the first half came about because Estupinan was just left on skates by a Bari attacker on the right flank. And I did actually make a note of that. It was around 9 minutes and 15 seconds. The Bari attacker was able to get past him way too easily. It gave a little bit of Theo Hernandez vibes from last season when he was, I'm not questioning Estupinan's work rate. I thought he was actually working really hard. But he didn't hold the right position and he was undone too easily. And around 55 minutes, there was a shot that came from Pagano. And the only reason why Bari was able to create that opportunity was because it was a loose cross from Estupinan to Fikayo Tomori. I think they were just trying to switch flanks. And it was a fairly easy cross to make. It wasn't even from the extreme edges of the flanks. It was, more so in the midfield. And it was a pretty bad cross from Estupinan. The Bari player latched onto it. They started their counter-attack, and I believe they did get a shot in towards Milan's goal. And that's the only thing that I felt about Estupinan. I just felt like he was working hard, but sometimes maybe not working so smart and finding himself in awkward positions where he gave opportunities to a fairly weak side in terms of attack. Now, to be fair to him, it's his first game in the league. It's his first game, playing for Milan competitively, and it's gonna take some of these guys a bit of time. Even the other profiles, that did get an opportunity today, were subbed on. They didn't necessarily all leave an impact. And it's going to take a few games for us to really, truly be able to see how good they actually are. So for Estupinan, for today's performance, there is a bit of a call out, not towards his work rate, but towards what he actually did at times. And the third takeaway from today's match, this one's also going to be a green box. This one goes out to Christian Pulisic. As I said in the match preview, playing him up top, almost like a striker alongside Rafael Leao, was unconventional from the coach, especially for a competitive game. But he also ended up getting on the score sheet. Pulisic with space, Christian to Jimenez, good ball. Pass back to Christian. There we go. One thing that has to be said about both Leao and Pulisic's goal, if you go back and watch both of their goals, they were both able to score completely unchecked by any Bari defender. So it has to be acknowledged that this game was against a side that does not have a very good defense, because Milan was able to get 2 goals scored without, the attacker even getting closed down. Leao with the header had a completely free header, and Pulisic with that shot was left completely unmarked by any of their center backs, and he was like maybe 6 feet away from the goalkeeper. It has been an awkward time for Pulisic with all the controversy that is happening with the U.S. men's national team regarding missing out on the Gold Cup. I honestly never really thought that there was going to be a time, especially with how, my evolution around Pulisic happened and my acceptance of how good a player he actually is happened. I never thought that there's going to be a time where I'm going to be arguing with U.S. men's national team fans and I'm going to be the one supporting Pulisic and they're going to be against him. I think the fact that the guy sat those games out, and when he came to preseason with Milan, he already had an ankle injury, pretty much epitomizes why he actually took a break from that tournament. He wants to make sure that he got enough rest. He wanted to make sure that he's ready for next year's World Cup, which is way more important than some Gold Cup. And I think seeing him get injured and, being on the sidelines and then coming back, and in the first game, once again, scoring the goal over the last 2 seasons, I think Leao and Pulisic played the same amount of games last season, 50 matches, 29 goals and assists for Pulisic, 25 goals and assists for Rafael Leao. And before we know it, the new season starts and it's the same old guys once again getting on the score sheet for Milan and giving them the win. It was interesting to see how, Pulisic was sort of lining up in this system. A lot of the times I felt like he was playing more of the left winger role. Even for the first 15 minutes when Leao was on the pitch, Leao was playing the central role and Pulisic was playing a winger role. And they did sort of alternate. Sometimes Estupinan would be the overlap, sometimes he'd go with the underlap, and it could have even been more than one goal for him. In the first half, he did hit the crossbar, so I thought overall against an opposition like Bari, it was the kind of performance you would expect your attackers to put in, especially quality attackers like Christian and Rafa. And the final shout out from today's match, before we jump into the final green box, this one's going to go out to Luka Modric. Honestly, this is almost like an honorary shout out just for the fact that this guy's playing for this team. I've never seen, I don't remember seeing that a player, obviously when they come on, a lot of the times fans, you know, make that and the, you know, the sound sort of echoes around the stadium. But for them to cheer every moment that he had the ball for the first 5-10 minutes was something that I don't remember seeing the last time. Anytime Modric was on the ball, the fans are just clapping and making sounds. And once, you know, he would pass the ball to Alexis or to Fofana, they would just shut off. And he'll get the ball back, and once again, they'll start clapping and cheering. I think just having that moment was cool in itself, but I do feel like there was an opportunity that he got, you know, where I think we all know which one I'm talking about, where he made the run into the box. He was completely unmarked. He should have just ripped a shot and scored a freaking goal, man. I don't know why he kept driving the ball forward and forward, I think waiting for somebody to make that run through the middle so they can get an easy tap in into an empty net. And he did, you know, cut the ball back across the face of goal, but no one was really there to tap it in. In that moment, I think it was lined up perfectly for a player like him to actually take a chance and score a goal. But just having him here at Milan, I think is going to be a big boost. As I said in the Loftus-Cheek part, that leadership and intensity and, you know, work rate, that was the things that I feel like was missing last season. Intensity was good for the entire team, and I think that truly comes from the coach. But the leadership that they're going to get from this player here, probably it could be invaluable as the season progresses. And the final takeaway from today's game, this one's also going to be a green box, and this one goes out to a player, as I said, intensity, leadership. This guy got intensity and work rate for sure, and that's Alexis Saelemaekers. Now, I know there are fans who feel like, you know, okay, maybe he was trying a little bit too much. Maybe while he was in the box, he wasn't, you know, the most effective in what he was trying to do. He was trying too hard to score a goal, trying to strike the ball way too hard instead of, you know, being accurate. He was just being too powerful, and those are fair critiques to put on him today. But I do think that there's something about a player that just freaking works hard, man. I think the number one thing that made me actually come around to Pulisic was not necessarily the goals and assists. I mean, the goals and assists obviously help, especially the amount that he has scored and delivered. But it's the work rate. It's the amount that you sacrifice your body for your team's cause, and I feel like Alexis really does that for this team. In the first half, the amount of times you could see him running back and forth, helping out in attack, helping out in the back line as well. Around, I think, 46 and a half minutes, he had a great shot that he took. In the second half, around 59 minutes and 15 seconds, there was a moment that I think Bari were able to get on a transition, and they were attacking, and his slide tackle to win the ball back and then turn it into an attack, those are the qualities that this team needs. That's the intensity that has to come back to this Milan side. That's what they lost. Last season, they were just going through the motions. There didn't seem to be a collective team effort towards working hard. And I think that is probably the biggest change that I saw in today in the first competitive game of the season, where the entire team was just working so hard. And I think that was led, you know, from the front by players like Alexis, Loftus-Cheek. I felt like Fofana also worked really hard today. I think the other thing that I do want to add is, you know, under Max Allegri, you've got the sense that this team is actually busy while they're on the field. They're all doing something. So many times last season and even the season before that, you felt like this team was so static. They weren't moving around. They weren't really doing anything. They're just waiting for the ball to come to them. They weren't running around finding the right space. Today's game, you felt like everybody for the entire 90 minutes was running around trying to make things happen. Especially the off-the-ball movement was, to me, on a whole other level than I've seen this team for the past couple years. And a massive testament to that is the coach. So there you have it, Milan. You see, those are the 4 takeaways from today's match. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter @FootballKush. And as always from my side, Forza Milan. Grazie mille. Ciao tutti. This is style of play and the scandals. Oh, the scandals, including a bizarre locker room incident where a player essentially drugged his own teammates. And we'll look at how lowering Serie A from 20 teams to 18 teams might be the